Good morning, girls. It is Miss Ferguson, and it is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. We are going to be talking today about the strategy of inferring a character's emotions. So, our learning target is I can identify character feelings based on dialogue, actions, and thoughts. And we've been using dialogue, actions, and thoughts to help us determine character traits. So today we're going to be using those same pieces of information to help us figure out how a character is feeling. Now, we can all think of times where we've been able to figure out how someone is feeling based on the little things that they say or do, even if they don't come right out and say how they're feeling. For example, if you came into the classroom and Miss Ferguson was stomping around the room and slammed papers on the desk, which I would not do, you could probably figure out that I was mad or in a bad mood. Similarly, if you came into class and you had your head down and you were talking very quietly and you had a sad look on your face, I could figure out that something was wrong. You were upset or sad about something. So we're going to be using this strategy, especially in the context of reading the Hope Chest, where you'll be moving on to another chapter throughout this week. So when we're going to infer, and remember when we infer something, we make an educated guess. We always talk about how authors don't always come right out and say something. They want us to do the work. So in order to make that educated guess, we use the information that we have. In this case, that information that we're going to use are those dialogue, those words, those actions that were being described, and the thoughts that are being communicated to us by the writer. We're going to read a couple short passages. Make sure that you pay careful attention to what the character is saying, how she or he says it, and what his or her actions are. How he or she says it is important because we can say something, but depending how we say it and the tone we use and how it comes across can change what we're meaning. For example, if I walked up to someone and said, "Hey, that's a really nice shirt," the person might say, "Oh, well, thank you. That was such a nice compliment." But if I walked up to someone and I rolled my eyes and I said, "No, hey, that's a really nice shirt," that sounds rude and it sounds like I'm not making a compliment, that I'm actually saying something rude. So that changes what's being said. Then we're going to match the emotion or the feeling and talk about some matching pictures. Ugh, Blake sighed loudly. He thought, "I always get detention when it isn't even my fault." As the class walked to lunch, Blake got to the end of the line and crossed his arms over his chest. He squinted his eyes at Liz. It was her fault, after all. "I'll get you back," he hissed under his breath. We could infer here that Blake is angry. Not only is the picture showing us that, but we could infer that mostly from this passage, which is what we're focusing on because we're talking about this as we read a book. So, what do you see in the short passage that would make you think, Blake is angry? And I'd like you to jot this down on a piece of paper. So, just write Blake and then give me at least one piece of evidence from that little chunk of text that makes me think Blake is angry. Jose loved to read, but lately he was having difficulty enjoying reading class. The books were too easy, and he didn't find the work very challenging. He often found himself daydreaming during the lessons. Oops. "Jose," called his teacher. "Uh-oh," he thought as he tried to look busy. I could infer here from a few of these details that Jose is bored. Can you give me at least one detail that would show me that Jose is bored based on the information in the text here? Caleb was running late for school. He ran to the kitchen to eat. His mom was still in her robe. He tipped his head to the side. "That's strange," he thought. His mom asked, "What are you up so early for?" Caleb was unsure if she was joking. He scrunched up his eyebrows and hesitated. Um, I have school, he replied. I can infer here that Caleb is confused. But how do I know that? Remember, I'm inferring, not just guessing. Even though we can sometimes say that an inference is an educated guess, it's based on evidence. So I'm inferring or making that educated guess based on some of those text details. What's a detail that would show me that he's feeling a little bit confused? Ms. Kent directed the choir to stop singing, but Carmen wasn't paying attention. When she realized her mistake, she fell silent. She instantly felt sick to her stomach. She could feel her cheeks turning red. Looking down at her feet with a shaky voice, Carmen whispered, I'm sorry, Miss Kent. Based on that information, I could infer that Carmen's feeling embarrassed. But how would I infer that? I'm not just randomly guessing. So, what did I just read that might give me a hint that she's feeling a little embarrassed during this passage? Jerome had to walk home at night from Granny's house. He walked swiftly, looking behind him frequently. Suddenly he stopped and held his breath. His heart was pounding as he reached for his flashlight. His sweaty fingers gripped it tight. I could say here that he was frightened. But what do I see that makes me think that? What is my evidence from the text that supports that inference about his feelings? I just don't get it. Math is so hard, Kara whined. She'd been sitting at the table for 2 hours. She must have erased her work at least 10 times. Kara was on the verge of giving up. With tears welling up in her eyes, she whispered, I must be stupid. First of all, girls, that's a horrible thing to say about anybody, especially yourself. So never, ever, ever say that you are stupid if you're upset or frustrated or having a hard time, because that is a not nice thing to say to yourself. I can infer based on that information that she is feeling frustrated. But why? Why is she frustrated? So, girls, we've had a lesson on this before. So, this is basically a review. And we've also been working all week on inferring character traits and using details from the text. So, this is basically a continuation for you. Like I said, you're going to be continuing to read the Hope Chest, which I hope you love as much as I do. You're going to be reading chapter 6. Make sure that you take a look at your packet pages before you read. Even though you're not doing your packet pages until you've read, because of course they're text-based questions, there is helpful historical information for you. And it's always a good idea to take a look at the questions you're going to be asked, because when you're writing a text-based response, it's a good idea to have that in your head when you're reading the text. Don't forget that on Class Dojo, we have posted the link with the read aloud of the book. And it's always helpful to follow along in your own book as you listen to it being read aloud. And that may help you with some of the reading comprehension. After you finish today's lesson and jot down your details with supporting evidence, you are going to do your packet pages. Then you'll log on to News ELA. I will say that yesterday I gave girls who had completed their work the day off and gave other girls a chance to catch up. And I still only had 9 girls complete the previous article. It's really important that we're using News ELA as a tool. If we're having trouble accessing it, or if we don't have the technology available all the time, that's something we need to make sure that we talk about in our check-ins each week. Have a wonderful day, girls. It looks like it's going to be beautiful. So maybe after you get your work done for math and ELA, you can get some fresh air outside. I know I definitely want to, and I know that my cat definitely wants to because he's sitting in the window. Have a great day, girls. We will talk tomorrow.